It's recording. Jeez. Good evening. My name is Shirley McCormick, and I'm the president of the League of Women Voters of the Harrisburg area. And on behalf of the League, I want to thank you for joining us and welcome you to our program this evening. If you're not familiar with the League of Women Voters, we are nonpartisan. We don't support any political party nor any political candidate. We do, however, a big purpose is education, to let people know about issues, give them both sides of things to make informed decisions. Strongly also, we get people to vote. We register them to vote. We inform them about what's happening in voting, and subsequently we have the program tonight. And it came about because one of our members said, how do I know what's on my ballot? And that, you know, depending on how much you read and see, you may step into a ballot area and seeing it for the first time. So we're going to try and give you a head start on that. And we're very privileged this evening to have one of our members, May Zia, do that presentation for us tonight. May, not born and raised Pennsylvanian, but came here when she went to Swarthmore College, where she received an undergraduate degree in mathematics. She's been other places. I know at least Ohio, North Carolina, grew up, I guess, in North Carolina, and came back to Pennsylvania, and fortunately for us, joined our league and serves as our program chairman, person putting on these kind of programs, as well as heading up voter services and getting voter registration forms out in a myriad of places. She also put together this PowerPoint presentation you're about to see, and is going to take us into what's on my ballot. So I turn it over. Oh, I should say that if you have questions, hopefully this is not your first Zoom. At the bottom of the screen, there is a chat function, and you can type your question in there, and I will try and monitor them and feed them to May as necessary. So feel free to put your questions and or comments in the chat room for us, okay? So, go ahead, May, you're on.
Great. So I have shared everything on my computer with you. Just as a reminder, if you want to get rid of the pictures here, you can come up here to the black bar above them, click the very tiny bar, and all the pictures disappear, as you can see here. And I'm going to move it up out of my way because I believe that you're going to want to see the entire screen when I share this. Okay. Let me get rid of even this. Hide floating meeting controls. I found out all these interesting parts of Zoom that I had not used before. Okay. Our objective today is to help anyone currently listening tonight, as well as anybody who might view this presentation in its recorded form, really understand the importance of what is known as the off-season or municipal elections. So what happens after a general election where the U.S. presidential race is on the ballot, such as we had in November, is that the very next cycle are what are known as municipal elections. But you'll see tonight that there are far more things that are on the ballot other than just so-called municipal elections. And there are statewide races, there are countywide races. In addition to the municipal elections, there's school board, there's also all the judges of elections and inspectors of elections. positions for every single polling location in all counties, and that's on the ballot this year. I'm hopefully going to share how the holders of these races can impact our lives in many ways. They set policy, they raise taxes, they, do things that we like protect our elections, or, fund our local parks. But these are people that in very personal ways might rule against us if we have a case in front of them, might, make a mistake, quite honestly, in something that's important to us. Whether it's, whether your probate, if you're waiting on that release for somebody in your family that's passed, and something happens and somebody makes a mistake, those things can really impact you. There is so much information, and we are not a state where, unlike North Carolina, quite honestly, you can, in North Carolina, put in your address and zip code on a state website and receive a sample ballot with by the party that you're running on, or that you're registered as. And you can put that sample ballot on your kitchen table and think about it for a few weeks before you actually have to go in and vote. Pennsylvania does not do that. And it's quite difficult, actually, to hunt for all the races that are going to be on this ballot. And so one of the things that we've done for you here is be that aggregator of all this information. As Shirley mentioned, we are going to post this replay on our website, but I will also post this actual presentation on the website. So, if you miss something while I'm speaking, I go too quickly, I'm not clear, you can download it or flip through it at your leisure once it gets posted. Okay, we are covering today the 3 counties, Cumberland, Dauphin, and Lebanon, which is kind of our service area for this League of Women Voters of the Harrisburg area. Obviously, we have some individuals who are joining the call tonight from Lancaster, and I believe possibly York, and possibly some of the other surrounding counties. The exact races that we're going to highlight here are not going to be necessarily on your ballot if you live in one of these other counties, but the general structure is all going to be the same. The types of races are all going to be the same. It's just specific to the vacancies and the terms of what you're going to see in your particular county. Let's see here. I'm going to let Cheryl Harmon in.
Oh, thank you. I got it. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I was
No problem.
writing. We're okay.
Okay. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to actually
No, that's okay.
advance here. All right. Let me just move ahead. There are 3 proposed amendments to the Pennsylvania Constitution on the ballot. I can't say enough times, whatever your party registration, whether you're a Democrat, Republican, Green, Independent, you can vote for or against these proposed amendments. We spoke about these proposed amendments back in February, on February 9th, and we posted the recording out on our website. So if you want a more detailed discussion about that, please, I urge you to go out and listen to that recording. This is a summary of the 3 amendments. The actual verbiage is out on our website, as well as in the appendix of this presentation. I'm not going to go through it right now. Okay, what's the problem here? Oh, here we go. Okay. We're going to start at the top with judicial races. There are 3 what are known as appellate races on the statewide ballot this year. There is one open seat for Justice of the Supreme Court. There's one opening for the Superior Court. There are 2 openings for Commonwealth Court. These courts are known as the appellate courts because that is not where, these courts are not where a trial would originate. Those are always in the common pleas courts. Instead, anything that is appealed higher up because somebody didn't like the judgment in the Court of Common Pleas, they would go to these appellate courts. These appellate court seats serve a term of 10 years. You can see here that the Supreme Court has a particularly broad mandate in the state. They are what is known as a discretionary docket. And incidentally, everywhere where it's underlined, you can see this as a hyperlink, right? So I set these up so that you can easily click to a website where this is quoted, and there's some more discussion about it if you really want to hear more. In the case of the Supreme Court, if you're following politics at all, you know that during the November 2020 election, they made some important decisions. And you know, if you were in favor of those decisions, you applauded that. If you were not so in favor of those decisions, you really didn't like it. And when this is a case where, you know, they have a impact on how our voting system works, but on many, many other things too, including, for instance, here, you know, mandatory death penalty appeals, and certain things that might come from the Commonwealth Court. What a discretionary docket means is they pick and choose which cases they accept. And so as a result, they have quite a lot of power because of that discretionary authority. You know, obviously, if they choose not to listen to an appeal from the Commonwealth Court, as an example, then they don't have to, and they can let the judgment stand. But if they choose to listen to something and then rule, obviously they can overrule if that's what they decide. Wherever possible, I gave you a Wikipedia so that you could you know, explore a little bit more about the Supreme Court. And then I also included where I had it, which is every place except for the Court of Common Pleas, the candidate Pennsylvania bar ratings for the candidates that are running in this year. I will give a shout out to the fact that this Wednesday, we are going to have a debate sponsored by PA Modern Courts. And if you have not registered for that and you're interested, it's again on our website. And that would be sponsored by Pennsylvania Modern Courts, and I believe also the League of Women Voters and any number of other, you know, sort of good government organizations around the state. So tune in there.
May, before you go on, there is a question in the chat room about where is the info on the amendments?
The amendments are in the appendix of this particular presentation, but they're also posted out onto our website. And then we have the whole February 9th recording session where we discussed those amendments.
And can I interject another thing? Ballotpedia.org, BALLOTPEDIA.org. On that website, there is information about the 3 amendments as well.
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry.
Mm-hmm. All right. So below the Supreme Court are 2 intermediate appellate courts. They're kind of represented side by side in some graphics. Superior Court is the first one we're going to discuss. And then the second one is the Commonwealth Court. They have a division of labor between them, where the Superior Court is largely focused on appeals in the criminal and civil cases from the Court of Common Pleas, and appeals on matters involving children and families. So I'm using my cursor to highlight this. The Superior Court people have been known to try to go, because they didn't like a judgment, go up to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court very often rules or denies a petition altogether from a Superior Court. So the Superior Court ruling would typically stand. I think that was a new news to me. I didn't realize that. This is part of the discretionary authority of the Supreme Court, where they will pick and choose whether they want to hear a case from the lower courts. Again, there's a Wikipedia for you and a PA bar rating. There is a Superior Court debate. Let's see here.
April 6th.
April 6th. Okay, very good. Thank you. So you'll want to register for that as well. And that is also on our website. The Commonwealth Court is, you can see here, also an intermediate appellate court, but unlike the Superior Court, they're looking at the cases that involve the governmental agencies, public sector, actions to which a nonprofit private corporation is a party, objections to nomination petitions and papers for statewide office. If somebody decides to contest, nomination papers for running for office, they would come up through the Commonwealth courts. You can appeal from the Court of Common Pleas, or somewhat rarely, I think, do a sidewise appeal from the Superior Court into the Commonwealth Court, but typically the Commonwealth Court is going to appeal straight up to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. Okay, Court of Common Pleas. This is what's known as a trial court. So Court of Common Pleas is where most disagreements that have to go to trial are going to start. It's organized largely by county in Pennsylvania, except for the fact that some counties are so small that instead of 67 courts of common pleas, we have 60, because there are a few counties that, just by workload and the size, they've combined. But in our area here, there is a Court of Common Pleas in Cumberland and Dauphin County, and I believe Lebanon as well. But Lebanon does not have a seat open this cycle. Only Dauphin County and Cumberland County have a seat open, and so you'll see the candidates for that. You can see this court hears civil and criminal cases. It's extremely broad in terms of the scope of the cases they hear. It's basically everything. Adoption, divorce, child custody, et cetera, et cetera. What's interesting here, and I'm going to bring up something that is not in the presentation, but it's just I'm going to discuss. The practice of cross-filing in this state is allowed in 3 races: the Court of Common Pleas, the magisterial district judges, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, and the school districts. Cross-filing basically says I can get my name on the ballot on the Republican ticket in the primary, as well as the Democratic ticket. It does not say whether you are registered, the candidate is registered as one or the other. It's just saying I can put my name forward on both sides of the ledger, if you will. When that happens, the candidate must collect, in this case, 250 signatures, which is the number that's required to get on the ballot as a Democrat, from Democrat voters. And then they would have to also get 250 signatures from Republicans to get on the Republican side of the ledger. In this particular case, because there is 1 seat open, the strategy here seems to be that if I can, by cross-filing, win at least the race on one side of the ledger or another, I can guarantee myself to be on the ballot in November. Or if you're really good, you become the nominated Republican and you become the nominated Democrat, in which case, in the primary, you have won, obviously, the race for that seat. This is one of those things where, you kind of got to know the rules in order to play the game. I did notice, I believe in Cumberland County, both the two candidates have cross-filed. In Dauphin County, the last I looked, I think 3 of the 4 candidates had cross-filed. Again, this is a 10-year term. I have put in here something called the judge of the municipal court, just for completeness sake, but it only applies to Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. So we're not going to discuss this tonight because it's not relevant to us. Magisterial district judges, the thing I learned here that's kind of interesting is that these folks do not have to be attorneys. They do not have to have passed the bar. They don't have to, be registered as a trained lawyer. However, they do have to continuously go through training. They are important because they are taking a lot of the load off of the courts of common pleas. The kinds of things they might rule on, and this actually happened in an area that I used to live in not too long ago. In the city of Harrisburg on 2nd Avenue, 2nd Street, there is parking all the way up and down, residential parking all the way up and down the street. There is one organization that governs the street sweeping, and there is another organization that actually puts a ticket on your car if you haven't moved your car on the day of street sweeping. And what happened in a case is that the city, for whatever reason, decided that they weren't going to sweep the streets. So, people listened and they said, oh, that's great. I'm not going to have to move my car. Because when you move your car off of 2nd Street, you're really crowding into the side streets. Well, this other organization that gives the tickets came along and they gave a ticket to all the cars that were still on the street on that day. And somebody actually took it up to the magisterial district judge who ruled in their favor and said, no, that's ridiculous. It was the city's fault, in essence, that they had not ruled, had not communicated with the street parking, the fining people and the parking fine people. And, it's unfair to a resident that they're told one thing and then penalized for the other. Okay. There are going to be any number of pages that look like this, because what we did was to go hunt for you and show you race by race by race by county and broken down by municipality, what were the races. So in this particular case, the way to read this is in Cumberland County, there's a magisterial district judge race. If you live in Mount Holly Springs Borough, South Middleton Township, or Dickinson Township, no other. That collective area happens to be district number 9-3-03, and it's a single judge that will serve for 6 terms. That's the way you read this. If you move on to Dauphin as an example, in Dauphin County, especially the city of Harrisburg, we have wards, and within wards we have precincts. So Harrisburg 7/1, the way you read that is the Harrisburg 7th Ward /1st Precinct, and that collective group together makes up Magisterial District Judge District 12-2-04. And that the residents of that particular district are going to elect a single magisterial district judge for 6 years. There are a number of cases throughout this presentation where there are asterisks, and I tried to note where it seemed to make a difference that in these particular places, there was going to be a vacancy due to retirement. Sometimes there's a vacancy due to a passing. Sometimes there's a vacancy due to somebody moving away and relocating. And then in some cases, people just decide to resign. So there are any number of reasons why vacancies occur. Very often, though, folks that, particularly in the magisterial district judge races, once they become a judge, they serve for a good long while. Here's Lebanon. Okay, in general, office qualifications, if you're on one of those appellate courts, you have to have state residency. If you're a common pleas judge, you have to be in the district, which is largely equal to a county. You have to be a member of the bar in good standing, and you have to be under the age of 75. There is a mechanism at the federal level, and these, all the appellates would be federal positions, where people nearing the age of 70 become designated a senior judge, for instance, and they begin a sort of phased out retirement. But that's how they handle the age limitation. As I mentioned, magisterial judges do not have to be lawyers, but they do have to undergo continuing and extensive legal training. Okay, this particular slide I included because this is if you really want to get into some of the decisions that might impact you. You can go hunt for these. These are the courts keep an incredibly detailed record of all of the judgments, opinions, and if you get into any of them, you realize how they could affect you. If you're on the receiving end of a protection from abuse, or so-called PFA, you want there not to be any kind of mistakes. You know, you really need, you know, somebody on your side in understanding the situation and you know, ruling to help you out. So these positions, you know, really can impact the little guy, and they do so every day. Now, in our area, this is unusual. Most places do not have a special election, but in our area, State Senate District 48 has a special election on this primary. First of all, this is a district that covers kind of Steelton, part of Dauphin County, it covers part of York County, it covers all of Lebanon County. The reason why there is a vacancy right now is that this was originally Mike Fulmer's district back in 2018. He, if you remember, resigned because it came to light that he had been trafficking in child pornography. The seat was vacant for a little bit, and then there was another special election. A fellow named David Arnold assumed the seat, and unfortunately, he passed away of brain cancer just this January. So now this seat is open again, and because this is still a continuing term, it's going to be treated as a general election. So you may, let's say, be in Lebanon County, and you're a registered Republican, and you, you know, get your ballot. First of all, remember that all those amendments to the Pennsylvania Constitution, you can vote on them as a Republican. And then whoever is going to be in this race on the Republican ticket as well as on the Democratic ticket, you can vote for either one in this particular race, because it will be treated as a general election. This person was going to fill the existing term until December 2022, and then they'll get on a full year cycle. I will make one comment here, which is that some enterprising individual, if they really got everything together, could also run and try to win on a write-in. I was advised, and I did not know this because it was before my time here in Pennsylvania, but Scott Wagner, who ran against Wolf this last time for the governorship, he got his first state representative seat in York based on write-in. He won that election based on write-in. So if you get enough people writing in, and it's one more than the votes of everybody else running, you can win this election or any election. So that's just a comment that there is such a thing as a write-in, and in certain circumstances, of course, it actually works to elect you. Okay, let's moving on here to county level races. I'm going to highlight all of these one at a time, but you can see this is the collective list: coroner, pathonetary, controller, district attorney, register of wills, and clerk of the orphans court, clerk of courts, recorder of deeds, and sheriff, that are going to be on the ballot cumulatively, collectively, if you will, across these three counties. But you can also see, because we're going to talk about this, not every race is on every county's ballot. In the case of Cumberland and Dauphin, there is the coroner race. Now, I learned a lot doing the research for this, and one of the things I discovered is that you don't have to be a physician in order to be a coroner. The coroner is largely the best way to think about them is that they're sort of the in between the medical profession and the legal profession. Our coroner in Dauphin County, who was on the ballot again, has been in the office like 30 years, and he has a great website with all of the specialties he's got, including things like blood spatter analysis and stuff like that, clearly he has developed that expertise over time. So the coroner has a lot of interest, obviously, on unexplained deaths in your area. So, you want somebody really good and competent. Okay, another race that's going to be on some ballots is called the pathonetary. I'd never heard of that before. That is actually the correct way to spell it. Pronounce it. Pathonetaries are basically a record keeper. They work for the courts, and they, as you can see here, keeps the Great Seal, issues processes, enters judgment, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The fellow who is running for re-election in Dauphin County as a pathonetary, I'm not sure exactly what were his credentials at the time he ran, but because I can tell you for sure he is not an attorney, and he does not present himself as an attorney. I did notice, however, that the pathonetaries that work with the Supreme Court, the Superior Court, the Commonwealth Court, and all the appellate courts, big courts, they are all members of the bar in good standing. They are, legal professionals, if you will. So, they take that extremely seriously. Obviously, down here at the county level, I'm sure this guy also takes his job seriously. But in the case of the county, we do not require him to be an attorney. So, pathonetary, the requirements of the pathonetary role can differ based on the level that we've got. Okay, controller. Well, controller, if you're familiar with what controllers do in a corporation, controllers largely do kind of the same thing, except that they do it within the confines of the governmental organizations. Tim DeFore became the Pennsylvania Auditor General, succeeding Eugene De Pasquale. He comes from Dauphin County. His term needs to be filled for the next 2 years for Dauphin County. And that's why there's a term for only 2 years on our ballot. Cumberland is going to elect a full 4-year term controller. Lebanon is the only county that is electing this time a district attorney. And of course, district attorneys have a tremendous amount of responsibility, but also power when it comes to prosecutions. And they can influence tremendously, a person's decision to enter a plea deal or whether or not to take their case to trial. The next two, Register of Wills in Cumberland and Register of Wills and Clerk of the Orphans Court in Lebanon, are somewhat related. In the case of Cumberland, the Register of Wills is just separated at handling all the things when it comes to certifications, your marriage certificate, your probate, your estates, your adoptions, your guardianships, all of that is in the office of the Register of Wills. In the case of Lebanon, they actually extend some of this for guardianships for incapacitated persons and whatnot in the orphans court. So they've combined those two roles. In the clerk of the courts in Cumberland, again, it's a record keeper, but specifically focused on the criminal division of the Court of Common Pleas. Why they have this particular clerk of courts and maybe a pathonetary, unclear, but that's just the way they're organized. And so, just know that the responsibilities are slightly different. A recorder of deeds is on the ballot also for Cumberland. And in this case, this is everything related to property in the county. All the public records related to that. And finally, in Cumberland and in Lebanon, a sheriff will be elected for 4 years. Now, the interesting thing about the sheriff role is that, we said, gee, what's the difference between a sheriff and a constable? Because there are quite a few places that have both. And then you've got the police force, right? Sheriffs and constables are elected. Police are hired. Sheriffs seem mostly to be focused on the courts. Constables seem mostly focused on, protection of spaces like polling locations and serving papers. So there's probably some overlap depending on how that role gets defined, but there's also a little bit of the separation of duty there. But there are roles for all three in these counties, sheriffs and constables, and of course the regular police force. Okay, so what we've done here again is shown you in Cumberland, these are the county offices that are going to be on your ballot. This is in Dauphin County, what the offices that are going to be on your ballot. And in Lebanon, what's going to be on your ballot. Everywhere I could, I gave you our source links, which is what you see in the websites listed down below. Okay, municipal races. Wow, did I learn some more stuff? There are only 2 official, what they call major cities in this 3-county area, Harrisburg and Lebanon City. That means that there is a chief executive. The mayor is considered the chief executive of city government. They're an elected official, they're paid full time, they have appointing authority, and they run all the departments, the office directors, the staff, etc. Wherever possible, I gave you links to descriptions of these offices. But if you go to the boroughs, there is also a mayor role, or name, by name anyway. But the boroughs, in many cases, the mayor is a titular head, figurehead. You got a ribbon cutting, you ask the mayor to be there. They are sometimes an unpaid official. They usually serve as a member of council, and they participate as a member of council, as part of the legislative body, at running the borough, but they don't run the borough the same way that a mayor of Harrisburg and Lebanon actually runs the city. The smaller municipalities like the first-class townships and the second-class townships have a commissioner or a supervisor structure. And that's the way you tell the difference between first-class townships and second-class townships is the first-class townships are large enough that they, you have a so-called commissioner role versus supervisor role. But in essence, they are, as a legislative body, running the things that are important for that township. So you can see they can establish a budget, they can levy taxes, and it doesn't really matter which size township you are. They're going to be making decisions on spending, on where certain streets and roads and whatnot get serviced, much as, quite honestly, the mayor does, Mayor Papenfuss does in the city of Harrisburg, right? It's just that it's a much smaller community. The controller is again responsible for the review and approval of all expenditures. They are typically autonomous, which is a good thing. Okay. Also, continuing on, depending on municipality, there are council members at the city level, and then the council members at the borough level. In the city, they're typically working by a committee structure. So there'll be a housing committee. There'll be a roads and infrastructure committee, and they'll be making recommendations through that committee structure to the directors and up to the mayor. And through the councils, though, I think at the borough level, again, are just smaller, and they're going to make some decisions, again, along the same lines, but they're probably not going to have such a rigid or, structured like a study committee. They're going to do it. It's just going to be a little bit less rigid. Now, let's talk about tax collectors and auditors. I discovered that virtually every community has tax collectors and auditors that are unfilled in the current positions. The reason is the legislature, some number of years ago, agreed to let boroughs and first-class townships, unclear why they did not include second-class townships, but they allowed boroughs and first-class townships to, by name only, by law, it had the tax collector position has to be on the ballot and the auditor position has to be on the ballot. But the legislature is allowing these municipalities to go and hire professional organizations and companies to actually collect taxes and be the auditor of the books. Over the years, collecting all the various taxes and auditing the books, it doesn't matter what the size of the community is, it's gotten quite a bit more complex. And so, what they pay the auditors, which is something like $10 an hour, is not enough for most auditors real auditors to actually want the job of an auditor. And that's one of the reasons why you see so many of the municipalities with a vacancy in the tax collector position and the auditor position. Flip side is that I was told that in some of these smaller communities, people like their tax collectors and they like to be able to walk into that tax collector's office and, pay their money down for whatever tax it is. So it really kind of depends on the municipality, what they choose to do. Sometimes the municipalities, while they are authorized to go and hire a tax collector and auditor, don't actually have the money to do that. So then, they're having to make do. Okay, more of these kinds of tables where you can see and hunt for, do you live in the borough of Shiremanstown, right? And if you live in Shiremanstown, you're going to vote for 4 people for 4 years to be on your council. That's what this second line reads. But if you're in the city of, or the borough of Newburgh, as an example, they have 2 positions that are going to be available for 4 years and 2 for 2 years. This is usually, again, because somebody passed away, somebody resigned, somebody retired, somebody, moved away. That's the way to read these. You can look here, the tax collectors, constables, and you can see here constable. If you're in the city of Mechanicsburg, you're going to be voting on a constable by your ward, not for 5 general constables covering all of Mechanicsburg. It's going to be one for your ward. Similarly, in Carlisle, and then in the row below, New Cumberland, Newville, Shippensburg, Wormleysburg, they're going to also be voting by ward for constables. This goes on quite a bit. So now you can see here's where the township commissioners are, right? Okay. This is Cumberland, and all second-class townships are going to be hiring an auditor. And then in addition, there'll be other auditors for 4 years and 2 years in these specific second-class townships. So there are quite a few auditor positions at the at municipal government level. And if anybody has any interest, that would be a place you could easily get somebody's attention. Here you have Dauphin County. You can see that in Harrisburg, we're going to be voting on a mayor. I happen to know that we have about 4 candidates, and then we have, I think, 1 person on the Republican side actually who's registered. That will be new for us. At least since we've been here. The mayor basically wins the race if they win the primary. At the council level, I will say that we have a huge number of people running for these 4 positions, like 13. So it'll be interesting. There are a lot of new people, a lot of young people, people who've never run before. So all that's good because I think that it'll bring a fresh energy into the city. Okay, in Dauphin, you can see, by borough, continuing down here, exactly what's going on in all the offices. Then you got your first-class townships. There are only 3 in Dauphin County. And then you've got your second-class townships, and there are a bunch of them, mostly focused on township supervisors, auditors again, tax collectors. In Lebanon, similarly. Okay. School district, wow. School district, they serve a term of 4 years. They stagger them, so not the entire school board doesn't come out of office altogether at one point in time. But these folks, Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Before you go on to the school district, someone has a question about constables. And is every municipality allowed a constable who is trained to carry a gun, etc.? Are there constable positions that are less law enforcement and more assisting with elections?
I will tell you, I do not believe so, the short answer. I will tell you that only a constable is allowed inside, by law, is allowed inside a polling location. And as the judge of elections, which I happen to have been for a large precinct in Susquehanna Township last year, I did have a constable come visit me. I would have preferred it if he had stayed at the door and just sort of waved and connected with me and saw that there was no need for him to come in, but he chose to come in, which he was legally allowed to do. And I, greeted him politely, and then, I answered the questions he had, and then, I could see that he was going to quickly leave because he did come in a bulletproof vest with a gun. I didn't want any of the voters who were there to feel in any way intimidated. I certainly myself was not intimidated. I understood that he had a reason to be there. He seemed to know some of the people who were voting in this particular polling location because I saw him kind of outside yucking it up with people, which is great. Had I really needed him, of course, I would have called him. but there is not, to my knowledge, a role that they play where they are not entitled to wear their whole gear. That probably depends. If they're serving papers on somebody, you know, maybe they feel like they need to or not. I don't really know. So I hope that's a good enough answer. Anything?
Part of the question was, is every municipality allowed to have one?
Well, I think in just about every case, they do. Yeah. Yeah. Every ward, every, you know, whatever the governing area it is that they cover. Yeah.
You just got to thank you for your constable answers.
Okay.
Go on.
You're welcome. That's the best I can tell you. Okay. In the school district, you can see these are folks that are going to also be important to you and your child. If you have kids in that school district, they're hiring the teachers, they're setting policy in the schools. In some cases, they're deciding whether or not they're going to have to issue a bond, to go and build a new school location, or maintain a track. All those things are things that school boards do. And if you've been kind of watching the Sorry state in Harrisburg, you'll know how important, good governance is for school districts, because there were some problems, and, the federal government had to step in, and we're still under that restriction today. I think it really, unfortunately, also hinders a certain amount of growth in the city from families with children, because many families, if they're able to and they want to stay in the city, they end up having to homeschool or send their child to, private school. But many families with young children, when the child gets to school age in Harrisburg, they're out. They move into Susquehanna Township, they're moving to Camp Hill or wherever, but they're out of the city of Harrisburg, and that's a shame. So school districts and school board members are really, really important for life in your particular area. And quite honestly, the good schools also translate often into good real estate values, right? So that's the other thing to realize. Okay, so here's Cumberland. Here's Dauphin County. And you can see here, again, the reason why Halifax School District has one person who's going to serve a 2-year term and 4 people who are going to serve for 4 years is because they had a resignation. And similarly in Harrisburg School District, fairly early on, one of the school board members was one of the earliest to pass away of COVID. And so that position is the one that needs to be filled for the next 2 years. Okay, Lebanon, it's pretty easy. Every school district has school directors at large being elected for 4 years, but in Palmyra, it happens to be an additional 1 for 2 years. Okay, finally, election officials. Every single precinct, every single one where there's in-person voting, they have 3 individuals, 1 who serves as a judge of elections and 2 who serve as the inspectors of election. The inspectors, I'll get to in a minute, but the judge is largely, when I'm a judge, I was told, May, you got full authority inside the polling location to 10 feet outside the front door, because that's where I can say, I'm sorry, but you cannot hand out your literature, within that 10-foot boundary. You have to be outside that 10-foot boundary. We govern carefully when people need to, let's say, use the restroom and they come in because they're standing out all day. We kind of escort them in and out quickly because we don't want them to take up space inside the polling location. I have the decisions-making authority to do that and handle that. And when there are discrepancies, with a voter, whatnot, I'm calling downtown. I'm trying to help that voter vote legally. But in some cases, you know, I have had to tell people, I'm sorry, but your voter registration is out of date and you didn't do anything about it for the last 30 years. And so now you cannot come in and vote. That actually happened in November, which was really sorry. I was sorry to see that. I would say that there are no qualifications that are required to be the judge of elections. There's a lot of paperwork. It does help to have worked a couple of cycles just to see how it's done. The judge of elections technically is supposed to reside in the polling district that they're serving. I do not live in Susquehanna 3. But I can be appointed because the entire team had quit before due to COVID and concerns about their health. And you know, since then I've been working and I have a team that I have assembled. Quite honestly, none of them actually live in the polling district, which we ideally would like them to, but we can't get anybody in the polling district to step up. The inspectors of elections are 2 people. They're known as the majority inspector and the minority inspector. Has nothing to do with party. If they were to run in a race, because they're technically supposed to be elected, the person who has the largest number of votes becomes the majority inspector, and the person who gets the second largest number of votes is the minority inspector. They are assisting the judge of elections. They are also there to witness, along with all the other poll workers, what's happening in the polling location, right? They sign paperwork with me, all the sheets with the tallies at the end of the night. Again, they do not have to have pre-qualifications to serve. I typically interview people who are interested in serving with me. You know, I'm looking for people who can meet the public well, who have an attention to detail, who, you know, can get along with everybody for a very long day. But, you know, other than that, you know, I don't need anybody with particular degrees or anything like that. And so that's the final thing, but also important, that's going to be on your ballot are these election officials. So let me stop here and just ask if people have questions.
Are you going to share your appendix?
I wasn't planning to. I thought I would just, you know,
Okay.
people are getting tired of hearing me talk, I think. It's already 8 o'clock.
There was a question about Vote 411. Do you want to talk about that?
I can to some degree. I'm not as much versed in this as you are.
Okay,
Sure,
I mean,
Ray,
I will take the
Ray,
question.
Ray, I saw is on the phone too, on the call.
Ray's on the call. Ray, do you want to take that question?
What's the question?
Are we going to talk about Vote 411 this evening to tell people they can get their ballot on Vote 411?
Yes. I expect that probably all of the races will be in Vote 411, but not all of the candidates, because we just don't have the people power, you know, to enter all of that information. So I expect for the county races and the county races that we'll have all the candidates, and probably for the city of Harrisburg. And then beyond that, we'll probably just have the races listed.
For those not familiar, Vote 411 is a League of Women Voters website that you could put your address in, and it would bring back your ballot listing the positions as well as the people running. And it is operated in that we send emails to all the candidates that are running for those positions and ask them to respond with a short bio and to respond to 2 or 3 questions that we might ask. We do not edit them. We do not type them in. The candidate provides the information. So if you go and you see a candidate has not answered, his response is not there, that's because they did not put it in, not because we did not type it in. They were asked. So as you saw by May's presentation, there are a ton and a half of candidates and positions. So for, I'm going to say our league, but it's really Ray, to do all of those down to that level, phenomenally difficult to do that. So we will get to the county level. But the other thing that you can look at, because I looked at it for putting this presentation together, if you go to the Cumberland County's website, and I think at some point Dauphin does this also, under their election bureau, you can click on, they have it by Republican and by Democrat because it's a primary and that's how you're voting. And it has a list of all of the positions, and the candidates are listed there as well. So it is, again, cumbersome, as you saw, because there are just so many of them. But you can scroll down through, get to your township, see what positions are in your township, because you have to look at county, then you have to go to your township, look at your township, you go to your school district and look at your school district. But that's another way of seeing the candidates if not all of the information is on Vote 411. So you hopefully that was long and drawn out, but answered that question. Are there other questions for May about anything we showed this evening? I wanted to mention, she went very quickly through, here's Cumberland County and the things. We will also have on our website under resources, a link to Lebanon County, to Dauphin County, and to Cumberland County. And that county's list that she showed you on these screens, boroughs, and then what you're electing in the boroughs, and first class and what you're electing there will be there, so that which is why she went quickly through them, just to give you a taste of what's there, but you can actually go there and see them, as well as the slide presentation will be on the website, because she mentioned various times there's a link and you can go look at that, and you're going, well, how do I do that? You can go through the slide presentation on our website, and you can stop and click on the link and go to the various places that she said there's additional information. Having said that, any other questions, other thoughts, other comments? Hearing none. I want to thank May for a tremendous amount of work that I know went into this, to put this together, the research that she had to do. But then I want to thank all of you people for joining us tonight. I hope that what we intended, which was to let you know what these different positions are. I finally know what a prothonotary is, didn't know before, but now I have an inkling anyway, that you know what the positions are, that you get a feeling for why they are important, because that is something that people don't seem to take as seriously. Presidential election, they're out, in droves. But these people affect you potentially more than who was elected president, because they're your local taxes. They're whether they're going to build that sewage plant right next to your house. These are the kind of decisions that these people are making. And that's why it's important to you to vote here and make sure that you're being, as best you can, represented by someone who is going to do a good job for you in those particular areas. If there is a question. These are thanks. She's looking forward to looking at the links when we get this out on the website.
Certainly, absolutely.
Yeah, and part of the problem is May is also our website person. So now she has to go and put all of her stuff on our website for us. She's our techie guru currently. So having talked about that, I'll mention again tomorrow night, the State League, Pennsylvanians for Modern Court and Bar Associations will be having a Supreme Court candidates forum to register. Link is there. Superior Court on April 6th. Our next league event is kind of a fun thing, but educational at the same time. It's called Tea for Three. And we have the author of this play and an actress presenting a play about three former First Ladies, Lady Bird Johnson, Pat Nixon, and Betty Ford. And she will be portraying all three of them and giving you insights into what Pat Nixon referred to as the hardest unpaid job in America. And all three women were in the White House at times of great, the Johnsons, the civil rights movement, and the Vietnam War. Pat Nixon, obviously, an issue with her husband having to resign as president. And then Betty Ford, her husband thrust into a position that he did not run for. And then her dealing with alcoholism, which came out that she benefited so many people. So we hope you join us March 25th, a week from Thursday. We'll have a Q&A with the author actress, and we will send you the link to view the video prior to coming to that. So we look forward to you joining us for that educational fun event. And again, thank you all for being here. And if there are no more questions, I'll stop the recording and we end the program.